Welcome to The Authority File, the podcast where you'll hear conversations with academic librarians, technologists, researchers, and authors whose work is laying the foundation for higher education's future. I'm Bill Mickey, your host and the editorial director at Choice. If you're new to The Authority File, you can listen to and find previous episodes on all of the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and on our website, choice360.org. My guests for this series are Tamsin O'Riordan, Editorial Director, Social Science, and Felicity Plester, Editorial Director, Humanities, both from Palgrave Macmillan. In this 4-episode series, which is provided with support from Palgrave Macmillan, Tamsin and Felicity provide a fascinating look behind the scenes at how humanities and social sciences publishing supports social justice. We'll look at the roles HSS plays in the way we solve and confront some of the most pressing issues of the day, from the perspectives of research acquisition, community engagement, and the publisher's own internal operations. In this 3rd episode, we discuss how Palgrave continues to evolve its editorial acquisition strategies, the role peer review plays in expanding the diversity of communities, disciplines, authorship, and ideas, and how community engagement helps Palgrave facilitate its HSS goals.
All right, can you explain from an operational point of view how the imprint maintains traditional discipline coverage while also moving into these rapidly evolving areas of the social sciences, as you described in an earlier episode?
We've been lucky enough over the past few years to be able to grow, so both in terms of our personnel and our output, to be able to actively explore these new emerging areas whilst keeping the more traditional elements of our programs really buoyant. Tamsin mentioned in the first episode that we're the only academic publisher to have had a dedicated gender studies editor, for example, and that was born out of identifying this as a core area of growth on the sociology list. Likewise, it was a very similar story for her social science, science and society team. From the humanities side, the literature and history lists are two of our oldest at Palgrave, and both have really extensive and very rich backlists. But as these disciplines have developed over time, we've also been able to replicate this by expanding into the more cutting-edge interdisciplinary areas. Likewise, the film culture and media list has seen really rapid growth over the last few years as the disciplines themselves have grown so massively. Doing things like starting new series is a major part of how we grow a new area of our portfolio. For example, we've just signed a lovely new textbook series on humanities and healthcare. We have really established series in areas such as literary disability studies, performing landscapes, media and environmental communication, digital inequalities. So all these areas that kind of really do bring things that, you wouldn't traditionally put together. Right. So other things that we do are, things like signing higher value titles. So things like handbooks, textbooks, major reference works, alongside our sort of monographs and editor collections programs. And these are a fantastic way of really putting a flag in the sand in these newer areas as well. We're also able to gather a lot of data about the performance of our titles. So in the olden days, previously print sales would have been the only indicator of success or otherwise. But now we can look at downloads, usage, citations, and denials to help us really identify which areas are doing well and merit further investment from the company.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay. So then, what role does peer review play in maintaining a diversity of communities, disciplines, authorship, and ideas?
I mean, a really, really massive one, obviously. It's of crucial importance to everything that we do, and it really ensures that we are publishing the very best research, regardless of who has written it and where it's come from. And as Tamsin said in the previous episode, just as we're trying to ensure diversity in our author base, we're also aiming to achieve more diversity amongst our reviewers and series board members as well. Obviously, retaining the anonymity of reviewers is of the utmost importance so that reviewers can be open and honest about the material they're assessing, and the feedback is constructive and collegial. Single blind peer review is our usual way of conducting peer review, but there are some disciplines where double blind is the standard. And kind of quite interestingly, I think a very long time ago, pre-merger, Palgrave experimented with a completely open peer review process. I think we simply placed 3 book proposals on the website, with the author's permission, of course, and invited fully open comments. And from memory, it kind of garnered quite a mixed response at the time. But I believe this fully transparent approach is a bit more common with journal publishing now. Given that online commenting is a bit more, general practice nowadays, I think perhaps it was a bit ahead of its time. Maybe we should have another go at it. I don't know.
Yeah, just a quick follow on the peer review process. I'm wondering, as you move into these areas of social sciences or these sort of interdisciplinary areas and kind of adapt quickly to the changing sort of research environment, how does that impact sort of your peer review recruitment, if at all? I mean, I'm curious to see like, how, if that makes it more difficult, or if it's not difficult at all, or
It's one of those crunch points in interdisciplinary production. I
Yeah.
think it definitely is, and this came up in the book I mentioned, that you do need to be able to do peer review across disciplines that is relevant for the market of the content you think it's going to go to. There's so many different challenges like this. If you kind of track an interdisciplinary research production through to publication, it's really interesting to think about what we can do to improve the service that publishers offers. And this is definitely one of them that we can think about.
Yep. Excellent. So what are the Social Science Matters and the Campaign for the Humanities programs? Curious about those. When did you launch them, and what are the goals for each?
Yeah, I can start. So we launched Social Science Matters 8 years ago with the publication initially of a book called Why the Social Sciences Matter. And it really started out to kind of put forward that question, and it's developed more into assuming we know and doing a bit more. So it's a set of work that sits alongside our publishing. So it's a sort of softer set of targets for us as an editorial team, but it's one we really enjoy and find very inspirational. And it sits alongside our publishing, and it seeks to signal our commitment to championing original research within the social sciences, which has been a set of disciplines that isn't always fully appreciated in our opinion.
Yep.
The campaign comprises of events. We have a free content hub of articles and podcasts. So not the books, but you will get some really nice short pieces of opinion pieces or interviews with the authors, or placing their work in something contextual and topical of what's happening at the moment. Podcasts are a new thing we've been doing. And then one-off projects, so we've done the odd author survey, for example. We really try to keep up with what's going on in the world. So you'll find on the hub an article on, what's going on with women's rights at the moment, for example. Yeah, and it's something we hope to continue doing.
And just to move on to the Campaign for the Humanities, it's a very similar story, really. It also started in 2013. Yes. And basically, I mean, it just reflects the fact that Palgrave Macmillan and the Macmillan Imprint in earlier days has a really long and sustained commitment to publishing in the humanities. And the idea of it is to really kind of give humanists a forum to lobby and assert the importance of their work. Again, the campaign comprises of a coordinated suite of book publications, blog posts, web presence, live and virtual events. And we get a lot of really good feedback about it. And I feel like it has made a real and lasting impression within academia, actually. The thing that we do every year, our core activity, is a panel event at the annual Being Human Festival of the Humanities, which takes place in the UK every November, and aims to make humanities research more digestible to the masses. So it really is meant to be for the general public. The festival is always based around a general theme, which we then interpret depending on the content that we have publishing around that time and which authors are keen to be involved. So we've just submitted our event proposal for this year, and if it's successful, it will be the 8th year that we've actually had an event. And this year's idea is a very broad discussion on the past, present, and future of women's reproductive health, which has in part been sparked by the recent overturning of Roe v. Wade in the US. So again, we try to keep it very, very topical. Yeah, so we're very excited about it. So fingers crossed it will be approved.
Excellent. So as a publisher, and even at the editorial level, in what ways does community engagement like this help facilitate HSS goals? And how are you engaging at the community level to foster ideas and extend the impact of your publishing ideals?
I think there's a real value in a publisher being understanding and supportive of academics and their needs. At the end of the day, academics do have to publish, and fostering author relationships and becoming an ally to the academic community means that relationship can be much more reciprocal and collaborative, basically. So in addition to the two campaigns that we've just been speaking about, we have an early career researcher hub and a mid-career researcher hub on our website to kind of provide advice and guidance about publishing at these points in one's career. And these have been really, really helpful over the years. And again, we've had some some good feedback about them. And the humanities in particular has always struggled to kind of demonstrate impact, for example. So being able to direct authors to some ways in which this might be achieved is exceptionally important. Similarly, we always keep an eye on the researcher landscape to see whether there are kind of our own practices and policies that need revising in order to meet external criteria as well. So I'm thinking in particular at the moment about potential requirements for open access publication in the next round of the Research Excellence Framework in the UK, for example. So we're always trying as far as we can to kind of make researchers' lives as easy as possible.
Great. So how have you witnessed sustainability becoming a major talking point and guiding light in academic publishing? How do the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, for example, factor into the Imprint's publications and policies?
So I know that a number of academic and other publishers are looking at both their values and operating practices, not only in light of these massive social environmental challenges, but as a way to demonstrate added value or also becoming an employer of choice, for example.
Yeah.
Palgrave is part of the Spring and Nature Sustainable Development Goals programme, which really aims to connect the researchers who are tackling these toughest challenges with practitioners in policy or business who need these insights. So as a sort of communications role. We're doing this by making our publishing activities more visible to our key communities through a variety of channels. That's such a corporate statement to make. And I could probably fill a whole episode on exactly what this means. But basically, both internally and externally, it's this really dynamic and positive set of projects, working groups, discussions that are enabling colleagues to work together in new ways. It really encourages content innovation, and new ways of engaging with our customers and research communities is a very dynamic part of what we're doing. I'll just also add that we obviously, like a lot of other companies, publish a very comprehensive sustainable business report, which does include social sustainability and people. And we do have one of the very few directors of sustainability and climate action officers in publishing.
You just heard from Tamsin O'Riordan, Editorial Director, Social Science, and Felicity Plester, Editorial Director, Humanities, both from Palgrave Macmillan. This series is brought to you with support from Palgrave Macmillan. Join us next week when we talk about the importance, from an editor's perspective, of focusing on interdisciplinary titles and subjects, and what that says about the research, readership, and the evolution of our societies. We'll also get a peek at emerging topics that Tamsin and Felicity are keeping a special eye on.
Do we publish only books that look at really popular culture? Absolutely not. Obviously, we do want to publish work that looks at cultural material that's going to be fairly widely known in order to attract as large a readership as possible. But what is popular, in inverted commas, is obviously quite a subjective term, depending on what you're into and your own sphere of reference. If your area of research is science fiction and fantasy, for example, I'm going to use that because we've just launched a new series in this area. You're probably going to be coming across and citing a lot of material that isn't exactly mainstream. So that series has got books on The Hobbit, it's got books on things like Dune, but it's also got books on things that I've never even heard of before. But presumably, if you're really deep in research in this area, then you will have done.
As always, underwriting opportunities for the Authority File podcast are directed by Choice's advertising manager, Pam Marino, and all of our episodes are produced and edited by Choice's digital media producer, Sabrina Kofer, with support from digital media assistant, Ashley Roy. That's all for this week. Thanks for joining us.